Welcome to another episode of Real Estate the Right Way with your host, Michael Wright, a residential realtor on Long Island, New York, bringing you the best educational content when it comes to real estate. And if you appreciate this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, give me a comment, ask me a question, and hit that bell so you're always notified of new videos. Thanks so much. Let's continue. Today is the second video in the series How to Buy a House. We're going over the first step of the first step. First step is finding the house, and the first step of that is defining your budget. But before we get to any of that, we're going to take a little bit of a detour to electricity. Seems weird, I know, but bear with me. Stay tuned. So in the first video, we discussed the three components to finding a house, and that's defining your budget, defining the house criteria, and also defining the location. So how do these three components work with one another, and what does that have to do with electricity? Well, if there's any electricians watching, you know about Ohm's law. And Ohm's law, it's interesting, let me draw it out here for you. So Ohm's law says that if you know the voltage and the current, you can find out the resistance. And if you know the resistance and the current, you can find out the voltage. So Ohm's law is made up of voltage, current, and resistance. And if you know two out of the three factors, then you can figure out the third. And this is Ohm's law. Well, it's almost pretty close to Ohm's law. What's Ohm's law? Now, this theory I didn't come up with. I think actually I heard it from Barbara Corcoran, but I've come up with the catchy title of Ohm's law. So what does this say? This says that when you're looking for a home, you have your budget, you have the location, and you have the house. And I'll tell you what, if you pick two out of the three, it's going to dictate the third. So let's put this into practice. If we want a 3-bed, 2-bath ranch, and our budget is, I don't know, $500,000, on Long Island, maybe we're looking in East Patchogue or Rocky Point or maybe even Deer Park. If our budget, let's say, is $800,000 and we want to be in Sayville, maybe we're still back to that 3-bed, 2-bath ranch that's nicely updated. So as you can see, as you find two, it'll dictate the third. If we want a, let's say a 4-bed, 2.5-bath colonial, or even Victorian, and we want to be in Garden City, depending on the location of the home, there's not going to be much we can do about the value of that house. We can find value, sure, but it's not going to be astronomically different than the houses and sales around it. So this is how the three components of buying a house work interchangeably and how they're connected to one another. So we have the home criteria, the location, where it's obviously located, town, school district, close to train tracks, busy road, quiet road, etc. And then our budget, which also incorporates the home price and property taxes. Now, before we get into budget and kind of the entire conversation about that, which is what this video is about, there is a little bit we can do to play around with this scenario. Because if we have a set budget that's based on our income and our credit score and our expenses, and there's really, a tight location that we want to be in, And based on your needs, there's a set number of beds and baths that we need to find. The one thing that we can kind of dictate, which we'll go into on a later video, is the condition of the house. Because obviously something that's brand new, something that's newly renovated, is going to command a higher value than something that needs quite a bit of work. And just because something is 30, 40 years old, it might need to be updated for cosmetic reasons and to kind of keep up with the Joneses. But there's a lot we can do at a showing to kind of see, and during a home inspection, to see if the house actually functions properly. So yeah, that's what I have to say about this. Let me erase all of this fine artwork here, and we'll get into talking about the budget. So we're talking about budget. All my fancy artwork is erased. Why is it important to know your budget? Why is that the first step to finding a house? Why should you get pre-approved or understand how much money you want to spend on a house before you even start looking? Well, it's somewhat simple. I've worked with clients in the past and even myself. When you go out looking for a house, if you don't have the amount that you're looking to spend clearly defined, you could be looking actually under what you can afford. And in those scenarios, you have this expectation of what you're going to be able to find out there. And then when you go out and actually see those houses in person, they don't measure up to your expectations. On the flip side of the coin, if you're just kind of doing quick math in your head and you're like, oh yeah, I think I can afford this amount, and then you go out and see houses in person, they're absolutely stunning. You fall in love with one of them. It's on the end of the cul-de-sac. It's newly updated. It's fantastic. It's the house of your dreams. And then you go to make an offer, and they say, oh man, we got to get pre-approved before you can make an offer. And you get pre-approved, and you realize you can't actually afford this house that you're now absolutely in love with, that no other house is going to be able to stack up against. So to avoid those two scenarios of disappointment, get pre-approved first. If you need a lender, feel free to reach out to me. I have a handful of great lenders on Long Island that I work with all the time. Be happy to recommend you one. So what's involved in the budget? Right, we have two components, and that's the purchase price, which is fairly obvious, but then there's also the property taxes. Homeowners insurance and flood insurance, we'll cover that in a later video, and feel free to ask me questions about your specific situation or reach out to me directly. My contact information is at the end of this video and also in the description. But the main two components that affect your monthly payment are your loan amount, which is a factor of the purchase price. So the loan amount, the amount that you're borrowing from the bank, and also the property taxes. And as we know, on Long Island, property taxes can fluctuate greatly. So I kind of want to go into doing some more math here, how one can affect the other. So let me take a quick minute and write some numbers here on the board. Okay, we're back. How do these numbers work together to get you the house that you want? So let's say we're pre-approved for a loan amount of $500,000. Now you'll put your down payment on top of that to get your purchase price, but the monthly payment is going to be based on the loan amount, the amount that you're borrowing from the bank, and also the property taxes. And for today's discussion, we're assuming a 6% interest rate. We'll go into, at the tail end of the video, how to make these calculations on your own if the interest rate is not 6%, because the likelihood that it's going to stay at 6% for any amount of time is unlikely, because rates go up and down. Okay, so in this example, we're borrowing $500,000 from the bank at 6% on a house that has property taxes of $15,000, and our monthly payment is $4,557. And you might be saying, geez, like, I pay close to that or more in rent. What am I doing? Why don't I buy a house? Yeah, exactly. you should call me. But let's continue. So, to expand our options, we're in this search criteria, we'll only be looking up to $15,000 in taxes. But what if the house of our dreams is $16,000 in taxes? How does that work? Well, this is going to be $1,000 more a year in property taxes. So $1,000 a year divided by 12 is about $83 a month. So if we don't have that $83 a month to put towards the loan amount that we're borrowing from the bank, then we can't borrow $500,000 to keep this monthly payment the same. And at 6%, we go this way. At 6%, $83 a month works out to about $14,000. So you have $14,000 in buying power or $1,000 in taxes. Okay? So if we're spending $1,000 more in property taxes, we need to adjust this loan amount down $14,000. So that's pretty cool. So if we only borrow $486 from the bank, and that could be $14,000 more out of pocket for the same purchase price, or we could try to negotiate the house down a little bit, or we could find a different house that's at a little bit of a lower price point that has $16,000 in property tax, and our monthly payment remains at $4,557, plus or minus a couple cents here and there. So, what if we find a house that's has property taxes less than $15,000? Let's say let's get pretty nuts. Let's say that we found the dream house. It's a little bit more expensive, but it only has $11,000 in property taxes. So that's $4,000 less than the amount that our pre-approval was based on. So from $15,000 we go down to $11,000. That means we have $4,000 a year to put towards the loan amount. Now, what's 4 times 14? You tell me. 4 times 10 is 40, and then 4 times 4 is 16, so it's at 56. So based on the original pre-approval, where your loan amount was $500,000, and they were expecting you to find a house that was $15,000 in property taxes with a loan amount that you could afford, based on your income and your expenses of $4,557, we found a house that's only $11,000 in property taxes. Pretty cool. Which means we can now borrow up to $556,000 to keep that monthly payment the same. Pretty good. So as the property taxes fluctuate just a little bit, the buying power actually shifts pretty greatly. If this doesn't make sense, check out the contact information at the end of the video, and I'll be happy to explain it to you in person. And I told you earlier that at the end of the video, which we're coming to that point, I'll be able to tell you how to determine this on your own if the interest rate's not 6%. Go into a mortgage calculator. You can Google it. There's apps that have mortgage calculators. And what you want to do is put in the interest rate at whatever it is on the day that you're watching this video, and figure out how much you can borrow for $83 a month. Because $83 a month, as we mentioned earlier, is $1,000 a year. So when you put in $83 a month at whatever interest rate it is right now, that will give you the amount that you can borrow. Pretty simple. And again, if you enjoy this content, if you find value in it, please give me a comment, ask me a question, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you're always notified of upcoming videos. Thank you for watching another episode of Real Estate the Right Way with your host, Michael Wright. And as always, Tell me what home means to you, and I'll help you get there. Thanks so much.